that took for hours every night cleaning that thing. So yeah. But you learn a lot about, different things that way. And as I shared with you a minute ago, I didn't come from a wealthy family, so you had to work, you had to have jobs.
And then what, so you go to college. Now, are you just acting at this time, or are you also selling the weed? And also, I'm curious about this pound of weed. How did you bring it to college?
Wow. Well, in those days, most of the weed we were trading on the East Coast was brick weed that came in from Mexico or Jamaica. Sometimes we would get what we call pillow weed, a little fluffier, a little not pressed as hard. Call them pillows or bales, sometimes we call them. And that was a little bit higher quality usually.
How much was that back in the day? For a pound?
It was somewhere between, for a pound, it was like $800 to $1,200 a pound in those days even. Yep, I was getting quarter pounds from my brother for $300.
Okay.
And I was happy to get it.
For sure.
And so the price, the prices have not changed all that much over 40 years, or 37 years, which is a testament to the traders for keeping the supply at a steady price. And the quality's gone up, a lot since then.
For sure.
But I remember very distinctly that first load I took across country because it was Jamaican. And it was pressed really hard, and it was really strong, but it was ugly. It was ugly. It was brownish kind of weed, and it was that old big bud Jamaican that's been pressed. It's super sticky, and it has that real danky, tropical, moist, borderline moldy thing going on it, and it was really strong, though. And I remember not knowing. I took it because it was compact, and it was easy. I had to roll it up in my, clothes with some wrapping on it to avoid smell. And in those days, there were no dogs in the airport. This is 25 years before 9/11 happened. You could basically, every once in a while, they might X-ray something or randomly search something, but you could pretty much, as long as your bag didn't smell like weed, you could pretty much check some weed through. And either that or I got very lucky. One of those two things happened, and I got the pound of weed through. And of course, that was the most valuable thing I had. And when you're 18, you go off to college, you have like some clothes. You have like a few cassette tapes or a little bit of music, right, that you assembled in your young life up to that point. You have maybe some books and school supplies that parents and relatives have given you. But when you go 3,000 miles to college like I did, you're traveling light, man. And so I was really glad that the weed got through, of course, because that would have been a terrible way to begin. Say goodbye to my father and then get busted a few hours later. But that didn't happen. My problem was the California kids didn't understand that weed at all.
Yeah.
Because they weren't used to brick weed that.
They're used to this beautiful weed out here.
Yeah, they were getting buds grown in California, and they weren't pressed, and so they thought, "What are you doing to us?" Right? And so I had to sell all that really, really cheap to a lot of frat boys and other people who didn't know the difference, and then very quickly, that's the
what the hell is that?
That's the It's a test. It's a test.
This is only a test, people. We are not under attack. This is the Oakland Hills here. We are not under attack.
This is the fire evacuation alarm.
It's all good. I hope there's no fire.
No.
This is the first podcast outdoors, though. So thank you I like this. I think we're going to do more like this. Does this just keep going?
No, it'll stop in a second.
I'm just going to play the podcast right on through this, baby. People out there are just going to have to handle it.
Well,
it's a beautiful
there's
noise.
nothing like life.
Have you ever seen that, right? It sounds like that Silent Hill.
Wow, it's going a little bit longer than it usually does. No, it always happens at noon on the first
Monday
like
of the month.
Tuesday of the month or something. And
it's not too bad.
Well, it's working very well.
Yeah. If there was a fire, you would know to leave.
Yeah, I think it's fire. It's probably any disaster that requires an alarm.
Is it going longer because there could possibly be a fire?
No. It's too wet. There's no way there's a fire.
Alrighty.
But it is going long. Let me text my girl here. She's on next door.
Just turn your radios down for a little bit, people. We're going to get through this.
This is so 2020.
Yeah, right.
This is supposed to...
you'd think we'd be in 2020.
We're in 2021. This is supposed to be happening.
Shit is following us.
All right, let's check.
Check the local news. See if there might be a fire. All right, the alarm is over after about 7.5 minutes. Okay, we're back to the podcast. Where were we?
I think I'm in college still.
You got a pound of weed and you're in college.
Yes. So I very quickly had to find some local connections to score weed from, and that was a process in and of itself. But I managed to do it, and then I was able to purchase, things that were more appropriate for the tastes of my clientele in California.
For sure. Did you find a difference in price, or was it all the same?
It was remarkably consistent. Of course, the weed was a lot better.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But it was about the same price.
Okay.
See? So I remember, the quarter pound the pound I got from my brother was probably $950 because I got a little discount. But the first quarter pound I got in California was $300.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember very well because I was scoring from this particular source for a while, and then the guy got in trouble with hard drugs or something, and he had to go to rehab, and I lost that connection.
Ooh.
And then the price went up to $700 a quarter pound because I couldn't find the right source. So I remember very well. My memory is very strong because the price went up, and then I had a really hard time finding anything for less than $500 after that. Not because it wasn't available, but because I was a new kid in California. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know. And it was 1980s. It was like the way you learned if people smoked weed was you had little codes with each other.
Yeah,
and, you'd see what each other listened to or wore, or little things, and eventually you just go up to someone and say, hey, you want to go smoke a joint? You'd have to take a risk. And just,
exactly.
And they might say, no, I'm going to report you.
Yeah.
Or they might, usually they say, I'm so glad you asked.
Okay.
And
that's
so,
crazy.
The process of doing that many hundreds and thousands of times in college, eventually I worked my way up to some folks. But I never... While I was in college anyway, I never was able to really meet. I didn't have my brother out here, I did on the East Coast. So I didn't have that connection. I'd make do. In those days, that's the way it worked.
Yeah, that's crazy. So did you act any acting jobs, or did you land any acting jobs at all?
Yes.
During your time?
Yes, I was
What did you do?
I was very fortunate. I got my first professional paid television acting job while I was still in college.
Okay.
And it was on a television program called Superior Court.
Okay.
And it's one of these Judge Judy type courtroom reenactments. Of course, they casted me as the young fellow who went crazy and killed the girl. No, the girl's grandmother.
So these are fictional cases, sort of Judge Judy style, because
they're loosely based on real cases, they claim, but they were pretty sensational and tabloid-like. And so I played this young kid who basically went crazy and killed this lady.
Do you remember your name? Did you have a name? Your character?
Oh man.
Or was it like killer number one?
No, it was just like David Johnson or something. it was very, because in those shows they don't reveal who actually did it to the very end. So there's always one character that you think did it.
Okay, yeah.
So they always make the character you think did it more stereotypically bad than the character that really did it. So I was like this quiet, reserved guy until they get me in the stand on the very end, and then I go crazy and I confess to the whole thing.
Jesus.
And that was my very first, and it was a petrifying experience because I was 19 years old and I had to go on this big Hollywood set. And
were there actors that you knew there? Or
no, nobody. I knew nobody. My agent, I had an agent because she'd seen me in a play that I was in college, and she, the industry's always been young. So
yeah.
I was in that age, that perfect casting age where there was a lot of parts. So it was petrifying. I remember I at the very end when I was on the witness stand acting, I had this speech I had to give. I blanked on my line. And I had to stop, and they had to stop, and they stopped everything, and then the lady comes out with the book, and she shoves it in my face, and that's your line. She points at me and goes, oh, yeah, I'm really sorry. And, you can't do that a second time or you're, like, fired on the spot, right?
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yeah. If you do that again, you're fired. I mean, or you might be able to finish that day, but you're never working on that with those people again, ever.
Damn, son.
And so the pressure was on. Luckily, I didn't blank, and I did a okay job. Yeah, and then in the summertime, I would do summer stock plays and Shakespeare festivals when I was in college and stuff like that. Yeah, and then I did some professional plays more than I did film and television. When I went to the acting school up here, that's when I started doing more.
Yeah, where was that?
Independent film, San Francisco.
Okay, got you.
So, so that's when the whole DIY independent film thing started breaking out really hard in the early 90s. And so, what I would do is I'd sell enough weed to have enough money to do a little play at a tiny little theater in the ghetto of the Mission or something. Yeah. And I'd do a little 50-seat theater, and I'd do a play for a few weeks, and then, I'd be broke. And I'd have to go sell some weed for, a year or two, and then, I have enough money. Now I can go do a little independent film. I'd put a little independent film together, and it was a very DIY time. I was young, and no one was going to give me opportunity,
you
to create. Take it. Yeah, take it. So that's what.
Gotcha.
That's how. And then, of course, I did a lot of work when I was in school studying. You do all kinds of plays.
Yeah, what's acting school like? So is it just like repetitive, or is there?
Well, all day long you do ballet and voice classes and yoga, and you strengthen your body and voice. And then at night, in the afternoon, you go to rehearsal, and that night you perform.
Is everyone required to sing at acting school?
You have to take singing. Yeah.
Like even if you're like, I'm not good at singing.
Yeah, that was me, and I had to do it. Yep.
Damn.
It's like law school or any grad school. It's like culinary school.
Yeah.
You have to take the knife. You have to take, the sauces.
Dining room. Yeah.
You have to take, if you don't want to do front of house, you still have to learn front of house.
Exactly. Wow.
And I didn't want to be if you're not a song and dance man by the time you're in grad school, you're never going to be a song and dance man. You're just not. Yeah, that's something you got to do when you're a kid, a little kid, to get really good at it at the professional level.
Yeah.
But you can be an actor, or you can be a person